Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of absinthe, the show of traveling the world in search of the best vermouth. Today's guest is co-founder of Tempus Fugit Spirits, Mr. John Troia himself, the world traveler, the bourbon sipping, the vermouth nerd. John knows a lot about a lot of things, and it's interesting to talk about how this wild journey ended up with his bottles of absinthe, his bottles of vermouth, Grand Classico. He's got a greatest hits of Amari and Digestifs, Aperitifs, and it is the perfect addition this week. First on Monday, Nikki Petri, just starting with Glazers in the distribution realm in Texas, and Tempus Fugit Spirits are some of the fine elixirs that Nikki will be carrying in his portfolio. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this chat with John Troia.
No, but I've had some pretty bad absinthe that makes me want to jump off the
bridge. the antithesis of modern absinthe.
Yeah, exactly. It's like my mantra is if you've had an absinthe that tastes bad, it's probably just a bad absinthe.
That's right.
Because good absinthe is sublime. But the first absinthe I ever had was from a bottle of 1910 CF Berger. So it's a
1910?
1910.
Where the hell did you have that?
In Paris. My business partner and co-founder, Tempus Fugit, Peter Schaff, he has a pretty extensive collection of pre-ban absinthe.
Oh, wow.
Stuff is sublime.
Wow. So can you describe kind of how it's different than what we might get from
what's interesting is that, you know, when you distill absinthe, you're distilling from all these different herbs, and you're getting all these essential oils. And the interesting thing about high herbal content spirits like Benedictine and Chartreuse, for example, there's a very big kind of collecting culture around vintage Chartreuse.
Oh, yeah.
And if you've ever had Chartreuse, I think the oldest I've had is from the 1920s.
Wow.
The stuff is absolutely sublime.
It's different, right?
Well, yeah. Like if you pop open a bottle of Chartreuse now, you're going to taste one of the prominent front notes is Angelica root.
Uh-huh.
But when you taste a vintage bottle of Chartreuse, that Angelica root almost recesses into the background to where it's really not very prominent.
Yeah.
But you get some other essential oils that convert into other flavors.
Oh, wow.
Most notably like verbena and those kind of citrusy type notes.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really
totally different experience then, right?
Absolutely. And a couple of years ago, they had, I think it was the 500th year anniversary of Benedictine, and I had a bottle of 1934 Benedictine, so it was like the first shipment that came in post-Prohibition.
Yeah.
And we were in San Francisco, and it was at the old Mint building. And so after all the guests left from this party, all the bartenders and people in San Francisco, all the industry people that were still there, we all gathered into one of the old gold vaults, and then we opened up this bottle of Benedictine. Now, I hadn't tasted it because it was unopened, so I just kind of crossed my fingers hoping it was still good. Yeah, it's fantastic. Wow. Absolutely fantastic. And that's the thing about spirits where you've distilled and are using a lot of herbs in its recipe, is that those essential oils over time will oxidize and convert and actually get better.
Wow.
So where the concept of, you know, like a whiskey, for example, it's doing all of its work in a barrel, and then once you've taken it out in a barrel, it's like suspending time and it's in the bottle.
Right.
That's not the case for some of these higher herbal
living
spirits.
And breathing.
Yeah, they continue to evolve and oxidize and change into different things, and for the better in most cases.
Yeah.
So, but they're really, I think, misunderstood or misappreciated, really, because I think that something like the Benedictine you probably pick up for like $80 a bottle.
Wow.
And the stuff, is absolutely phenomenal.
It's crazy.
So pre-ban.
So I'm getting this content right. So I got lots of people come in. I had a lot of conversation, and You're real intriguing already. So I get this sense like you've seen some shit, man. You know, and I get that, right? Like you have a nice watch, even though it's covered up. I saw this. I did see this. Okay. This is what I learned from my dad, right? Like my dad always wore a nice watch. He still does wear it. Well, now it's an Apple Watch.
Who uses a watch anymore, right?
That's right.
Everyone looks at their damn phone.
He loves it because it's watch is a different deal. It's a status symbol for such a long time.
Men don't have a lot of jewelry options. They don't, so it's like a good watch, good shoes,
that's right.
Things like that. So
so there's so many different places to start. So I guess the first thing is I saw you on this video podcast for Anchor, and how was that experience? It helps me because I've got the dossier built already for me before you come in.
Alan is a talented guy.
Yeah.
Alan, he was one of the founding folks that created Mutineer magazine.
Oh, okay.
And he is really this multimedia genius in my view.
Yeah.
And Anchor was smart enough to kind of wrap him up while he essentially took a hiatus from Mutineer. Mm-hmm. And across the street from the Anchor Brewery facility, they have this other building that's kind of a warehouse, but it was kind of like these older office buildings, and they gave him kind of carte blanche to build kind of a studio. And so now he's doing these regular podcasts where it's the podcast and now video.
Yeah. It's interesting because the video, see, this is the great thing. I don't have a face for TV.
Yeah, well,
so I've got a voice for radio.
I mean, that's obvious and wisely understood.
It is, right? Absolutely. Like in this case, I can wear my shorts. I don't have to wear shoes. I don't know what I'm trying to prove to you by wearing shoes right now.
On at all. I mean, it's impressive.
It's hard. It's my own house. Like, is there even a point in wearing pants? Obviously, Jennifer's in the room. I don't want to be polite. Obviously,
she's casual.
Pants optional.
Pants optional.
This is good. This is a good place to start.
Boxer briefs.
That's good. Yeah. Or the combination.
Yeah.
Which changed my world.
Yes.
It really did, right?
Yes.
Modern. That's like innovation. No one thought of that until the 2000s, late 90s.
The manties, if you will.
Is that what
I think so.
Right,
I think that's the correct nomenclature. Is that correct, Jennifer?
The manties.
Okay, thank you. The
that's
manties,
good. Yeah. I like that. I like that.
So.
Well, so you have. I can't even imagine how serpentine of a story this is, and how many different places you've been. But tell me what quaint little town did this all kind of start in? Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
San Jose, California.
San Jose. Okay.
Yeah.
I love San Jose.
I'm a native Northern Californian.
Yeah.
And San Jose is an interesting town.
It really is strange. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always kind of lived in the shadow of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's kind of grown and incorporated outer areas. But when I was growing up, one of the things that San Jose was known for was for having a lot of fruit packing facilities.
Okay.
Dried fruits and nuts and prunes and things like that. So you could drive, and there were areas that for miles were nothing but orchards of fruit and fruit trees.
This is pre-tech boom, right? Right down the street? Or is it at the same time?
This is where the facilities even came from, is that they were buying out all these farmers, and they were just ripping out the trees and then slapping up these high-tech facilities.
Interesting, okay.
Because, here you have San Jose, and all this land was relatively inexpensive.
Right.
But it at one point, anyone that grew up in San Jose, a lot of folks that went to San Jose State during the summer, this is when they worked in the canning facilities.
Right.
Where they were
common, right?
Yeah,
common
exactly.
things. Good summer job for some kids.
Yeah, and so there were some very well-known people that are very successful that their experience was going to San Jose State and working and earning money during the summer at the fruit packing.
So what was that like for you then? So do you have any siblings?
Yeah. I have a brother and a sister.
Older brother, kind of mixed?
1 year older brother and 5 year younger
So you're
sister.
doing the San Jose thing. What kinds of things interested you as a kid in San Jose?
I think something that's kind of funny, and it's kind of this strange interconnection, is that my mother had divorced when I was fairly young, and then remarried, but my grandparents lived in Santa Clara.
Oh, really? Okay.
From my birth father.
Right.
And so I never really got to know them very well.
Even though they're so close, right?
They were so close. And so what was interesting is I I used to go around the neighborhood in South San Jose where I lived, and I would take my lawnmower and and I would mow lawns for money. I charge like $3 to mow.
How old are you talking? Because I did that same thing.
Like 12.
I see. I figured you were like ahead of me.
Yeah,
you got that entrepreneurial bite, right?
And so there was this one neighbor in particular, and the guy fascinated me because he not only collected antiques, he restored Nickelodeons.
Really?
Yeah, and so he'd have this amazing coin collection of these coins that he found when he'd open up these Nickelodeons and find all these coins that would fall into.
That's where the real money is.
Yeah, that's where the real money is, literally and figuratively. But he used to take me to the San Jose flea market. And one of the first things, and he would point out different things and teach me about, it's like, hey, be on the lookout for this because this is, this is something that's valuable and people don't always recognize it, etc.
Trying to give you impart some expertise so you can go.
One was this hammered copper that was in the arts and crafts period by Dirk Van Erp, who had a studio in San Francisco. And the stuff was worth thousands of dollars. But you had to look for a particular mark, which was a windmill.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things that I was interested in that he pointed out, and kind of within my limited lawn mowing budget, if you will, was antique bottles.
Oh, okay.
And
filled or empty?
Empty.
Okay,
empty,
got it. I mean, I want to attribute you. Maybe you started drinking at 12.
No, I wasn't drinking that early, but in retrospect, I probably should have. But no, they're empty antique bottles, mostly from the 19th century. And one of the first bottles I bought was a empty bottle of Abbott's Bitters from probably the 1920s, 1930s. And so I started collecting antique bottles. So fast forward a couple years where my mother figured, it's time to interact with your grandparents. But why? What was the impetus for her wanting to, at that point? Was it for your sake, to bring them back in? It was because, that's a connection to the family as it was. And since she remarried, she married my stepfather, who had a son, who is my brother, my half-brother, who is a year older than me. And then between the two of them, they had a sister. So it was kind of like that was the family.
I see.
And so she didn't want there to be any confusion or distractions.
But that's nice of her. She's like, you need to get to know them. They're probably cool. They were cool, right?
So, and so I always got the birthday present and the Christmas present from the grandparents I didn't know. So finally, it's like time to meet them, interact with them. So I come over there, and the first thing I find out is my grandparents were antique dealers.
Oh my gosh, it's genetic.
And the second thing is my grandfather, his two favorite things were collecting and repairing mantel clocks and wall clocks and antique bottles.
Really?
And so here I am.
Did you even think about it?
I never even knew. Wow. And so independently of that, I'm collecting antique bottles that I'm being introduced by this other neighbor of mine. And then I come into what's to me was like this nirvana of antique bottles. I'm like, oh my God. And we're talking about all these rare whiskey bottles and medicine bottles and things like that. And so to me, it was really kind of this strange connection because I never knew that until I actually met them. And then
so what 15, 16? About that.
Yeah.
Man, that's incredible.
Then they started, I'd spend more time with them, and they would take me out to antique shows and flea markets,
which is what you want to do anyway, right?
What's funny is they actually made me their little shill because this
isn't turning into Paper Moon, is it?
It's pretty funny. No, it's not quite that creepy. But so we'd be at a flea market. And they would pass a table and somebody's selling like this old cuckoo clock, right?
Yeah.
And they want like $40 for it.
Sure.
And so we'd pass by and they'd be really subtle about it. And they'd say, okay, here, we're going to give you $25 and don't have anything else in your pocket. Just have the $25. And you go over there and you get that for $25 instead of $40. And so I'd like, okay, so this is the challenge. So I'd go over to the table. I'd say, hi. hi, how much is that coupon?
I'm just a young boy.
Yeah, I'm just a kid, and it's like, I think, this would be great. I think my mom would like it. And they go, oh, that's so cute. Well, it's $40. It's like, I only have like $25. And I would pull my pockets out and I dog ear.
Oh,
it's
my
like, I have no money out. That's all the money I have. And it'd be like, okay, honey, I'll do it for $25.
That's a great discount.
And so then I'd take the clock and I'd come over to my grandparents like, God, for $25. And they're like, yeah, that's our boy. So
you're part of the team.
It was a little bit of
fine.
a scam. I know. My parents and my grandparents were using me, but I liked it. I mean, it was. Sure. This was kind of it's like the work in the deal, the art of the deal.
Already wheeling and dealing. Yeah, in your teens.
I wasn't picking pockets, but close. Pretty damn close.
But that's good.
Yeah,
a natural born salesman.
Well,
in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what kinds of things? Because I wonder, and we're just beginning to dive into this trajectory and this path. But were you a math kid? Were you an English kid? History?
I was a science kid.
Science kid.
Yeah.
Chemistry or more physics or?
Well, it was interesting. I wasn't a math kid, but I really dug physics.
Yeah.
I was tapped early on in elementary school. There was something called ELP, Extended Learners Program. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, it's known as GATE, Gifted and Talented Education. And so, unbeknownst to me, the school district's doing all this testing, and when they find somebody that seems to have a particular aptitude towards something, they would see if they can kind of dial that in. And mine happened to be science, and I didn't know it at the time. You're
just doing your thing, right?
Yeah, I just got sat in a room one day with the school psychologist and a few other folks saying, you're really gifted in science, and we want to, kind of move you into like a special group focused on science. And in junior high, I got isolated into this group where I would go into my science class with all my friends, and then I'd be excused, and I'd have to go into this smaller classroom with like 5 other kids. These kids are pretty darn geeky.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was a geek. They were geeks. And so we were doing things like creating synthesized aromas, like banana aromas.
Really? With the esters
working
and all
with
that
amyl
stuff?
ethyl acetate and things like that. But
yeah, all right, geeky. I get it.
I'd go back to my class, before the period ends, and I'd get teased about it, and I didn't like it. So I actually told my parents that I wanted to get out of this, and my parents told the school, hey, he doesn't want to go to this special science class or course. And the school said, well, we're getting extra money allocated for him, and we think it's, something really beneficial.
Yeah,
my
he's a
parents
golden
said,
boy.
well, he doesn't want to do it. So they essentially released me. And now it's like, parents, why didn't you let me stay in there?
Oh, man. What is this, sophomore, junior?
This was like 7th to 8th grade.
Oh, okay. Wow,
just
really early
high
on.
school.
Yeah.
But when I went to high school, I did take advanced biology and physics. And the interesting thing is, even though I felt math was my weakest subject, I really got into physics because to me, there was a logic to it.
Sure.
And a fascination with the logic of physical law. And so things like advanced bio and physiology, and we did dissections and things like that. And
was there other stuff that were you ever a writer? Were you ever doing music? Or was really hardcore academics? That was really your thing?
Not really. I mean, I did Model UN.
Oh, see, that's different.
German
that's good.
Club. I mean, my family's from Germany, so debate and
what was your
talking? Lots of words.
Oh, debate. Were you cross-ex straight up?
What's that?
Cross-examination. Is that?
The interesting thing for me was like the Model UN, and I was very idealistic, I guess, back in the day, but when you take on a persona where you're supposed to be a representative of a particular country or government, you kind of dive in and just not immerse, but really submerge yourself into that and do the research and kind of understand how their perspective would be, because when you're
empathy, right?
Yeah. So when you're doing the Model UN and you're supposed to be a representative from that country, it's like, even though their position would be counter to what your personal position may be. You need to put up a credible offense or defense for what their position would be.
Sure.
And to me, that research and trying to kind of put yourself in that mindset was really intriguing.
Do you remember which countries you were?
Ireland was one of them. We were the Holy See one year.
Oh, man.
Vatican City. I mean, I think that
we're small, but we're strong.
Yeah, Granada and things like that.
Jesus.
But we one year we were like France, but I wasn't on that delegation. I think I was on Burkina Faso or something like that.
I see. No one knows that
crazy.
one.
Who is Burkina Faso? I know. But you know what? I think one year we actually engineered a coup to kind of create a little excitement and energy, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah,
it's good because it seems like it's not a huge surprise that we end up where we are. Some people, it's funny, like we'll talk and they'll be in their mid 30s, 40s, and they'll say, "Man, I don't know how I got here." I'm like, "Are you not listening to yourself?" Like you were in Model UN, immersing yourself, or as you say, submerging yourself in other cultures, really trying to understand the molecular balance and physics and those fundamentals there. It's like, no shit, you're doing this stuff. It obviously makes a lot of sense. And so maybe that's what this show becomes for
history,
everybody.
Antiques, research. Yeah, I mean, these are the things that come natural to you.
That's right,
yeah.
So I can't imagine, the college must have been in the plan for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you end up pursuing there?
I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, so I ended up working towards a general business degree at San Jose State.
Yeah.
But I still kind of flopped around. Ended up working at Nordstrom in Santa Clara.
Oh, okay.
In men's furnishings.
Would you say, so all right, so we're building this resume for you.
Sure.
John. So you've got a good worldliness already, getting into college. You have a good understanding of science, which means you're probably able to adapt to certain conversations and talk about things in an intellectual way, which is good.
The curiosity, I think, is really
perfect
one of the keys.
Yeah. Absolutely. You have this connection to the past and classic cultures, right? All this stuff's kind of building. Were you a gentleman yet? Did you dress well and have the swagger yet?
Not yet. What was interesting is, my family didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we were kind of middle, lower class, if you will. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I took exception to, and it was, I guess this is, really kind of a petty thing, but in high school, there's, for like the yearbook, there's always, best this, best that, best couple, best smile, etc.
Right. Most funniest.
Yeah. My school had like best car, best dress.
Oh, real important.
And but more importantly, it has nothing that you can control.
Sure.
Per se.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you had to be able to afford. I mean, the kids whose family could afford to give their kids ridiculous or buy them a ridiculous car. It's like, they got best car. It's like because they could afford to have best car or afford to be best dressed. So I've always had this inferiority complex where it comes to things like, that kid really dresses well. And, instead of Adidas, my parents are going to Kmart and getting me whatever the Kmart brand is for that. So there was always this inferiority sense of that. And so when I worked at Nordstrom, and I got to really understand about not just clothes in general, and how to put things together, but that price isn't always an indicator of quality.
Absolutely, right.
A lot of times it hints at it, but I really got to understand a lot more about how things are made and the qualities of cottons and things like that, and so that's when I had more of a foundation, if you will.
Do you think about the first time where you wore a good suit? Because I remember that time for me. Because there's always bad suits.
Yeah,
wear them through your 20s.
I remember my first suits were the first suit I had was a polyester number.
What color was it?
It was gray.
Okay.
It was a light gray with a white pinstripe, and it was at either Mervyn's or one of those kinds of stores at that level. And it's like you went to one rack and you picked your jacket size, and you went to another rack and you picked your pants
you
size.
You hope the pants match, right?
Yeah. Well,
the jacket's got it.
The thing was it wasn't a suit where it was the jacket with the pants.
Right.
It was the jacket's over here, the pants over here. They matched, but you mixed and matched your size.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cafeteria.
Was it atrocious?
Cafeteria. Oh, it was hideous.
Yeah.
And but I thought I was.
Were you swimming in it?
No, it fit.
Okay.
But I thought I was the shit. But looking back on it,
how old were you roughly? Like this teenagers or 20s?
Like 17.
Oh yeah,
17. Yeah. So
but I imagine Nordstrom's imparts this amazing insight into fashion and stuff.
And so for me, I always had the epitome would be get that Hickey Freeman suit and get that Sea Island cotton shirt and get the cufflinks and the whole bit. So,
do you have a preference in the jacket, like the 3-button, 2-button?
Well, I mean, that's changed over the years.
Absolutely.
That's changed over. I mean, I generally buy Italian stuff now, and I prefer like 3-button.
Got it.
Something that's cut a little higher.
Skinny tie, fat tie. We're just getting, obviously this is now turned into a gentleman.
It's
fashion suggestions of John.
That's interesting because I always had this interest in vintage ties.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And those tend to be wider. And but
then there was a period where it was skinny too, right?
There were the skinny ties. I did have the knit ties.
Yeah.
I will admit to that. I mean, it's I think we all have those pictures we're not proud of.
Well, sure,
but well, I'm sorry if you still wear
no,
them.
not
I
a knit. No.
I didn't mean to insult you there, but
as a joke, John. That's the only time I read it.
Okay, yeah, of course. I'm not judging.
Okay, good.
But no, so I really one of the things I wanted to do was to design ties.
Yeah,
and I was really impressed with Robert Talbot ties that are made in Monterey, and so one of the managers at Nordstrom that I knew said, you know what, if you're interested in doing that, you should get more of a formal education.
Sure.
So I ended up deciding to go to fashion design school.
Really? Did you move to New York?
No, San Francisco.
Oh,
so I went to FITM in San
sense.
Francisco. And
how does that kind of make amends with the fact you're still really into science? Is it because you have to deal with patterns and cutting and widths and stuff that somehow still very interesting?
One of the courses that was interesting to me was color theory.
I see.
And then there was fabric science.
Yeah.
And talking about different weaves and how different fabrics are created and the equipment.
Yeah, when you think of aesthetic, right? Because I love that concept. Was there stuff, if you mind, what year are we talking when you were kind of getting influence?
We're talking in the early 90s.
Early 90s, okay.
Yeah, good. Early 90s.
Anybody really influential art-wise that kind of maybe influences the way that you look at color design?
What's funny is I did have a color theory teacher who is hilarious, and I think he was drunk half the time. He was teaching his class. And I remember because I was going back to school at this point, so I was a little older than.
Did you rap then at San Jose State? Did you finish up the degree there, or did you take a break?
No, I took a break from that.
I see.
Yeah, so I did my third year, but I never got that business degree finished up. But I had always intended to go back, but I never ended up doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
That actually surprises me.
Yeah, well, it's at that time it's like I had to pay for school myself. I had to work, and it's.
How long did you do the fashion school then, or fashion design school?
That was 2 years, and
does that end
arts.
Does that end up like in a degree as well?
Associate arts degree.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But my first job out of there was Levi Strauss.
No kidding.
So I was one of 2 straight guys in the entire school.
Yeah.
It was interesting. And what I think was funny is that the award for the top fashion design student in the course was the Levi Strauss Award. And out of all the women and gay men I went to school with, I was the one that actually got that award.
That's amazing. And how do you feel about the style of jeans now? Like tighter, a little bit more stonewashed?
Well, the interesting thing is one of the people that I got to know pretty well was the buyer and merchant that was involved in the vintage line.
Okay.
So when they were reviving the vintage line of Levi's, they refurbished, I think it was 8 different looms that were the old looms that created that wove the 28-inch wide denim, which had the selvage on either edge.
You're gonna have to tell me what that is.
The selvage is, if you've ever seen anyone wearing a pair of denim jeans where they've been rolled up and you see kind of a white edge with a red line.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the selvage. That's the edge of the denim.
Interesting.
And so they were known as red line.
I see. Okay.
And in a way, that was kind of a mark of quality, but from a practical purpose, that meant that the edge was finished, so you didn't have to use a machine to finish the edge.
Right.
It was already pre-finished. And so what they did is the way they laid out the pattern is they used that as already a finished edge.
Right.
And so as a consequence, when they made the jeans, you would have that selvage edge, and that was something that people would roll up in as a sign of quality.
Sure. So here's something interesting, right? So you consider yourself maybe an outcast. You use the word geeky, nerdy, that you're kind of
thank you. I appreciate it.
Which is good, which I think is like kind of underappreciated now. Now you are in what is a hip industry, fashion forward, working for Levi in San Francisco.
Yeah.
What the hell? Like that's a crazy evolution, I would say, right? And so did the way... Like what kinds of were you living in San Francisco at that point?
I was living in San Francisco.
What kind of stuff would you go do? Like imbibe and see what cocktails there were, if there were any good food?
What was interesting is when I was going to design school, I actually bartended.
Oh,
and I bartended at a place called Silhouettes, and it was kind of a 50s, 60s theme. They play that kind of music.
Did you slick your hair back?
And what's that?
Did you slick your hair back?
No, I didn't slick my hair.
Were you rolling out cigarettes in your sleep?
It was, though I did do that for my first high school dance.
I see.
And it was a 50s theme, and I rolled up a pack of my dad's cigarettes in a white T-shirt, and I put Vaseline in my hair, which took me a week to get out.
Why does this seem like I can totally imagine this? Yeah.
And here's the funny thing is I show up, and I'm thinking everybody's going to be themed out. Yeah. Almost nobody dressed up. It's like I was like a sore thumb.
But that's bound to make the women flock to you. Or the girls at that time.
Not so much.
Not so much.
No, come on. We're talking, high school.
I know. Well, one can hope.
Well, but yeah.
So you're bartending at this place. So 50s themes, 50s, 60s?
Yeah. And so I'm at Silhouettes, and they had a location at Fisherman's Wharf, and they had a location in North Beach. And I'd alternate between the two, but I spent a lot of my time in Fisherman's Wharf.
Yeah, I love that area too.
So the first, I bar backed for a while, and then the first shift that I had, I'm ready to go, because what I did is I grabbed my dad's Mr. Boston cocktail book, and I made myself flashcards, and I memorized all the classic cocktails. And my first shift comes, and I'm ready to make them.
Did anybody ask you for a classic cocktail?
Nope.
You studied for a test that never was?
Yeah, I was never given the test. And the typical thing I'd get is a Long Island iced tea, but it wasn't a Long Island iced tea. It was a Long Island iced tea, and they wanted it strong.
Yeah.
The
As
strong
if it weren't strong enough already, right?
Exactly. It's like, okay, I'll omit the Coke float.
Right.
But it was, opening bottles of beer, pouring, doing blowjobs, fuzzy navels.
Right.
And this will really date myself, opening bottles of Zima.
Ooh.
Yeah, Zima.
The other white drink.
Clear malt liquor. I like it. But I think in a year, I made a sidecar and a salty dog.
And that was it?
That was it.
Were you craving more, like this outlet for this knowledge that you kind of...
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, I was expecting the clientele that would come in. It's like, hey, bartender, make me my usual. And it would be something classic and interesting. But instead, I got some tourist from Germany saying, "What is the cheapest beer you have?" And it's like, oh, God. I'm going to get no tip out of this, so I'll charge them an extra $1.
There you go. See?
No, seriously.
Also good on the business side.
No, but it just was not, the world wasn't ready for that classic cocktail.
But you were ready for it. You were ready for it, but the world wasn't.
I thought that was the expectation and the standard, but clearly it was unnecessary for the job. So I just did that through school, and after I got out of school, that's when I started working for Levi.
But did it keep calling you back, the hospitality? Because I imagine at some point you have to make amends with all these goddamn flashcards.
No, gin and tonics down in the marina, and getting sick one night and going, I can't smell gin. I'm over that now. But,
I hope so.
I think we've all had that experience.
Oh my gosh!
I remember. A friend of mine who his family owned a restaurant there in North Beach, and one night we were clearing out the bar, and I was sweeping and make sure everybody was out, and I checked the bathroom, and here's my buddy, and he was sitting in front of me all night drinking shots of Chartreuse. And he's like, "What's in this stuff?" And I'm reading the back of the bottle, and it's like Chartreuse, and it's like it has a combination of 47 different herbs and spices. And so I'm reading it to him because it's like, I don't know, it's high proof and it's pretty toxic stuff.
Yeah,
and so I go in the bathroom, and he's there, and he's just leaning over the toilet, just barfing for probably the third time.
Wow.
And I said, "Dude, what's up? You okay?" And he's like, "It's those fucking herbs and spices."
I'm barfing up each 57.
So it's like that was my intro to Chartreuse.
I like that. That is a good marketing campaign for Chartreuse.
Yeah, those
it may start a little rocky,
yeah,
but it starts to evolve, and you start to love it.
Yeah, but now it's like I enjoy vintage Chartreuse and VEP, and
right.
So it's a whole different perspective.
So were you thinking, I'm going to make the fashion thing the end? That's going to be my career, even though it doesn't necessarily incorporate all the stuff that you're building skills in?
Well, I think it has some relevance. After Levi's, I kind of became involved in, an understanding that's a really big operation.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I was working in the doctor's division, and the first time I saw a pant that I had worked on from inception to finished product. And I went to the bank with the head designer of that division.
You went to the bank with them?
Went to the bank. We went to the bank. We needed to, for lunch, we had to run to the bank.
Oh, okay.
And so we're standing in a line, and I'm standing in line, and the person in front of me is wearing a pant that I created.
Sure, absolutely.
But no one would know it.
Did you want the credit, though?
You get zero credit.
No, but did you want it?
Well, you kind of go in with this fantasy that you're like this.
My ass looks good because of your design,
or whatever. But it's like the only clothing designers that get credit are like the so-called celebrity designers.
Right.
The rest of us schmucks just kind of toil in anonymity. And we create these things, and other people take credit for it.
Absolutely.
And while I was really proud of the fact that I had a hand in, this was somebody that actually spent money to buy something that I was responsible for creating, I could have been anybody. There was zero in it for me, and not that I really wanted the credit per se.
No, but it would be nice, right?
Yeah, of course. It's nice to get recognition.
Was
that something good?
Is that the beginning of the end of that?
Well, it just kind of cemented in my mind that it's like I'm just a cog in a machine,
right? Absolutely.
And I think about all the other products that we wanted to bring forward, where the buyers and the merchants said, no, we don't think this is going to be a successful product, so we're not going to let it go any further. And you just don't have any say in that.
Right.
But if Ralph Lauren, and ultimately I ended up working for a private label design company that did private label production for Polo Ralph Lauren and DKNY and Tommy Hilfiger and these different entities. The way Ralph Lauren works is he'd come into a design meeting and say, I'm thinking of Africa circa 1925.
As if we'd all been there.
Go for it.
Right.
And we'll see y'all in 6 weeks.
Sure.
And then all these wheels in the machine start moving to come up with these concepts in the story. And
that's how flavored whiskeys come about.
Well, the bottom line is it's not like Ralph sitting at a design table.
I'm brilliant. Here's a moment of inspiration.
He's coming up with a concept, and then he's having other people kind of put together all these ideas.
Right.
And then 6 weeks later, he's going to come in and look at a storyboard and go, I like this, I don't like this, fix this, a little bit more of that, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's like, okay, see you in another 6 weeks.
Right.
And then these people all go to work. Well, at the end of the day, when the collection is being released and presented, it's going to be Ralph Lauren talking about my concept was this.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what
he's
doing.
He's the figurehead, of course.
I'm just a...
Well, so how do you again make amends with what is this disparity between the work you feel you should get some credit for and the fact that you're not? Like, what do you do? Do you go, is that the moment where we're like, well, I got to start a business now, fuck y'all, I'm not gonna be a cog anymore,
Well, the interesting thing is that by starting a business and having it as a small organization, especially one that you own, if you feel instinctually something is right, you can do it. You just do it. Now, maybe it turns out that you've made the bad or wrong decision, or maybe you've made a right decision, but at the end of the day, you've made that decision.
Yeah.
And that for me
that's
is
a nice
what was
feeling.
key.
Yeah.
Is because if I felt something was right, I'm going to go for it.
Sure.
And, it wasn't really so much looking for credit,
right,
but feeling like this was the right thing to do. This was the right path. This was the right product. Yeah. And this was the right formula, if you will.
What was the moment then where you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do something, but it's going to be my thing?
Well, when Tempus Fugit came into inception in 2007, it was because of my time going over and visiting Peter, who now had moved to Paris, because we met at Nordstrom.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wait, you guys were coworkers?
Yeah, we were coworkers. Yeah.
On the sales floor?
Yeah, on the sales floor.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No.
That's insane.
And so he ends up moving back to Florida, where he had grown up, and he ended up moving to Paris, marrying a French woman, lived near the Paris flea market, kind of got into this absinthe underground, if you will,
right,
and started working on developing historic absinthe recipes and products.
Was he a Californian dude too? They kind of just married into?
He grew up between Wisconsin and Florida.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's like a Westerner.
Here's the funny thing, and this is kind of an interesting tie-in. One of the things that we had in common, in addition to the fact that we both appreciated antiques, and when you appreciate antiques, I think you're someone that pays attention to details.
Sure.
And that's what, in terms of like clothing, for example, is paying attention to the details, the construction, the quality of the fabrics, and things like that. Right. But he also, as a kid, collected antique bottles.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So we both had that connection. And so is like.
Are you completing each other's sentences and shit too?
Yes, he completes me. So
you've known him for this whole time.
Yeah.
And so he's in France because he got married to a French woman.
Yes,
and so
poor bastard. Sorry.
How does that opportunity then even, like, that seems like an interesting divergence off the path. No, booze. Yeah, booze, right? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So I come over and I visit him. I'm drinking this pre-ban absinthe. The stuff is freaking phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I even remember telling him, gosh, if this stuff was ever legal in the US, I mean, it'd be gold.
Right.
And so he started working on a number of different brands, and one of them was the Vieux Pontellier, where he started working with a distillery in Pontellier, France. There were only, out of all the distilleries that existed that were producing absinthe before the ban in 1915, there were only 2 left in existence.
Wow.
And one was the Pernod distillery, Pernot.
Uh-huh.
And so Peter approached them and said, hey, you guys used to make absinthe. We did? Yeah, you did. Oh, okay.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for telling us that. Because, new ownership, et cetera.
Right.
And so he said, I'd like to develop an absinthe produced here using Pontellier wormwood.
Yeah.
And so he ended up getting access to Emile Pernod's original recipe diary from the 1890s.
Where did he find that?
The French don't throw anything out.
That's
and
good.
So
I
it's
guess.
like all these old documents and everything just in storage.
Sure.
I mean, they were just kind of like,
take the good with the bad.
Yeah. And so he ends up finding his old recipe diary, and he has a recipe for their absinthe.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a really kind of a strange recipe, because most recipes would say you take, 5 kilos of this, 2 kilos of that, 500 grams of this, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You put it together and you make this product. Well, this one said you took like 5 handfuls of this, 2 handfuls of this, a pinch of this. So what he did is he went around the distillery and he had everyone like grab a handful and drop it on a scale, and then he weighed it and come up with an average.
Are you kidding me?
Now, this is where my clothing, I guess, background comes into being, is that historically, there are all these historic tables of, like, for example, a size 8 dress form for women's clothing from 1880 changed over the years. So a size 8 back then and a size 8 now is totally different.
Right.
The height changed, width changed.
Interesting.
People grew, got bigger.
Are you going to tell me you research hand sizes?
Well, yes. Yes. And because I had access to glove scales.
I knew you were going to go backwards.
And so I said, hey, Peter, the average hand size in 1890 was like 20% smaller. It was like 22% smaller than the current hand size.
Did you reduce the mean by 20?
Yeah, so he had to deduct. He's like, that's a good point. And so he started deducting and doing a calculation for the weight ratio to say, okay, the volume now has changed, and it ended up being a much more balanced product.
Yeah.
And that was the Vieux Pontellier. And so then he says, hey, you know what? We know absinthe is going to be relegalized and coming up soon. This is in 2007. But I can't find an importer that would bring this stuff in. So what do you think about us forming an import company to bring in the Vieux Pontellier? And I said, sure. How hard can that be? And by that time, yeah, exactly. Famous last words.
Sorry.
And so by that time, I'm getting a little burned out in the clothing industry. And we also got to know the Swiss distillery, the Matter Distillery, who was producing the Duplay absinthe and the Marilyn Manson absinthe.
Oh, that's right, Manson. Yeah.
And so I'd met them on a number of occasions. They said, well, you know what? We're looking for an importer too. So what do you think about bringing our stuff in? And we're like, sure, why not? Yeah. And so we also started bringing in the Manson and the Duplay.
So how many SKUs? So at the moment, you were like,
just 3.
I'm going to do this. I got 3 products.
The Duplay and the Manson.
That's incredible. And
so the first 3 things we brought in were absinthes. Yeah. And once people started talking to us and figuring that we were relatively legit, we're not kind of selling it as a drug or hallucinogen or saying light sugar cubes and all that bullshit.
You're selling it because it tastes good.
Yeah, because it tastes good and it's well made and it's made to historic protocols. Right. So it's really a legitimate product.
So you've got so we've got physics, we've got fashion, we've got spirits. I tried to make it the same. I couldn't make it the same syllable, but that's okay. Were you ever a detective? Because your attention to detail makes me think like, well, I can't get anything past you, John. But like, there's nothing I can do.
But that's history. I mean, that's really
I get it.
The fun thing about it.
But that's brilliant to use that approach.
Well,
I'm not calling you brilliant. Let's not do that. No. That's a great way. That's an interesting way to think about it.
The fun thing is when you're producing a new product, we're not trying to come up with an angle where it's like, okay, this is our little angle and why you should use this product or that.
Right.
I prefer to talk about the history of the spirit or the history of the product.
Yeah.
And the inference is that whatever the correct historic protocol or process is, that's what we're using to create our products. Mm-hmm. But for me, the interesting story is the history of those categories. Yeah. Now, whether it be absinthe, which is one of the most maligned, but also one of the most researched historic spirits in, the last 150 years. Sure. But we can apply that same methodology to creme de cacao, creme de noyau, creme de menthe, vermouths, etc. And so that's really what we do is we apply a similar kind of research focus where I really like to actually get before cocktails because I think a lot of products ended up becoming lesser quality by their use in cocktails because most of these products are something that you consumed on its own.
Right.
And so when you think about it from that context, it's like, okay, if it was consumed on its own, it was very obvious whether it was a good or bad product because there was nothing to mask the flaws. When you bury it in a cocktail,
you can oversweeten it.
Yeah,
you can cover up lots of stuff.
You have other ingredients that kind of mask flaws. But when it's something that's laid bare on its own, it better be good. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very obvious that it's a poorly constructed product. So we kind of focused it from that research. So, you think about the history aspect of which I love. Yeah. Packaging, which really is kind of driven from my design aesthetic and appreciation.
Absolutely.
And then attention to detail.
Did you, so I go back to bottles, which is great. And then, I hear that some of the other brands, they pay kind of homage to historical bottles. Mm-hmm. So with the products and the aesthetic, because there is a very, very unique but yet common thread of aesthetic in terms of the fonts that you use, in terms of the colors in some cases, like that Grand Classico bottle, which is one of my favorite. It's wonderful. It's playful, almost Terry Gilliam-esque, if you know what I'm talking about.
Sure,
a little bit, right?
Sure.
But did you ever go back and say, oh shit, this was one of the bottles that I used to see. Like kind of tie it all back together.
It ties into the aesthetic, because for me, one of the hallmarks of good design is form and function.
Sure.
And so the function is the liquid.
Mm-hmm.
If you dial that in properly, then it comes down to the form. I recognize that bartenders pay a lot of attention to the quality of the spirits that they have on their back bar, but also, to a certain extent, it's kind of their art gallery. This is where they brag about what they're all about.
Interesting, yeah.
And so I know there's a number of products that maybe the juice is good, but the packaging looks a little weak.
Right.
I think the biggest crime is where you have an organization that spent a ridiculous amount of money creating
Custom
very
molds
expensive packaging, exactly, right. But the juice is almost an afterthought.
Yeah.
It's like you're putting the focus not only on the wrong thing, but not. It's as if you're not giving benefit to both aspects of it.
Absolutely.
And so for me, the juice needs to be spot on, but the packaging should kind of set you up for an expectation that I'm getting an experience that is one that has some type of historic context to it.
Right.
And so I have a collection of probably 5,000 or more vintage spirit labels.
Where do you keep this?
I keep it in my office.
No, I mean, literally. But what is it? Yeah. Is it in like a kind of a photo book?
No, it's in binders. It's in binders because a lot of these labels are kind of like postcard size, if you will. Yeah. And so I get these sleeves that are like postcard.
Yeah, like baseball cards.
Baseball card, like collecting sleeves, plastic sleeves. And then I have them broken out into different spirit types, etc. But to me, the aesthetics of the stone lithograph, that process that was used for the labels, and the graphics, whether it be fonts. For example, the Grand Classico was spawned by one label where I saw a couple of letters that I really liked the design aesthetic of those labels.
Right.
And I engaged a graphic designer that specializes in typography and said, I want to create the rest of these letters for Grand Classico bidder and to create that label.
Yeah.
And so he essentially took the letters that existed and created additional letters,
series of typography based on that.
To create the lettering for Grand Classico bidder. But for me, I'll probably spend about $5,000 to $7,000 on the design work for a label. And I have other brand owners that look at me and go, that's ridiculous. I mean, I have a guy that I pay in a house that I'll pay him like $1,000.
Right.
And the thing I don't say that I want to say, and maybe I'm ratting myself out here, but is like, and it shows. Because you only get
that one chance.
You only get one chance at that first impression. And also, if you want a bartender to stick something on their back bar and feel proud that it's sitting there and it looks interesting and compelling, then, I mean, how much money are you going to spend on marketing and other things?
Right.
And you're cheaping out on one of the most important attribute of your product, which is the very package that it's in.
Is it possible that I could call you the Stanley Kubrick of labels? Is that fair? Because I'm getting that vibe,
if
John. We've been trying to make this. Is this G work or not? Well, it's just not the right angle. The lighting's not right. Need some opacity.
I'm telling you, it does get down to that detail.
But where does that come from?
I guess I don't think about it from that standpoint.
Well, I'm just a layman, man. I'm just here trying to figure this shit out.
What's funny is I have people come up to me and they say, hey, would you mind giving me the contact information of the designer that you work with? And I say, yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but I got to confess to you, I'm the art director. I'm the one that directs him on the aesthetic that I'm looking for. So if you just say, hey, make me a label or do a poster or something like that, and you have carte blanche, you're going to get something and it's going to be good. But the thing that I think ties in all of our packaging is that I do the art direction. I am the one that's driving the vision that kind of links them all together. And without that direction, the artist is kind of left up to their own devices. And true to their talent, they'll come up with something that's interesting and well done. But they need direction.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like, well, okay, if you want me to figure it out. But these guys aren't booze people necessarily.
Right.
I mean, it's funny is I often have these conversations with the designer or the designers I work with, and I give them information that is kind of like alcohol or spirit relevant, and they're like, I'm not a very big drinker, so I really don't know. So they're not submerged
That's
into
almost
the aesthetic.
better, though, right?
It is better, but they rely on me to say that wouldn't have been typical from 1880s for a spirits label. And let me give you an example of what would be typical, and then they look at the visual example and they go, oh, okay, I understand what you mean.
So this is a tangent, but I swear to you it's parallel.
Okay.
Do you have a vintage bottle of Canadian Club in your collection?
Canadian Club?
I'll tell you why I ask, Mr. Draper.
I don't. I must confess, I do not.
Well, no, so you're artistic forward. You're a savvy drinker. You've got great sense of fashion, and you understand the fashion business. Did you enjoy Mad Men? It seems like it really harkens to like these kind of values that you have, right? Where you're very intelligent, an art director, you drink well, you're a man of the world.
Well,
tell me that you're not like just this guy that's crushing it.
I enjoyed Mad Men, but I actually like Boardwalk Empire a little better.
I see.
Yeah,
because of the time period.
It's because of the time period. Because of the cinematography, the costume design. Yeah. Because Mad Men to me is an era where things started going wrong with spirits. Things got dumbed down.
Yeah.
Vodka.
Right.
So and this is where I've kind of identified. What's interesting is like, our vermouth bottle is patterned after a historic style of bottle that was known as a vermouth bottle that disappeared in the 50s.
Really?
And also you look at our quina and quinine enhanced spirits and aperitif wines, they started getting softer and more delicate, and they're really stripping out the quinine in the 50s. Things started becoming more neutral, more simplified, and a bit more industrial in the 50s. So while it's kind of a romantic period to look at, is the 3 martini lunches, etc., but what does that represent? That represents just booze for the sake of booze, not necessarily for the sake of flavor.
Interesting.
So I kind of look back to almost that pre-prohibition, semi-prohibition era where you still have the complexity and the craftsmanship of the bartender. And, you came in, he knew your drink, he crafted it carefully, he did it in front of you. And to me, that is more consistent with the spirit and the attitude of some of the best bartenders that we have here in the U.S.
Absolutely.
Than, say, the Mad Men period of time. So
interesting.
I hope I didn't insult you on that.
No, not at all. See, this is the thing. Like, I'm getting a lot out of this chat with you. One, it's a pleasure, but two, you've lived it. You got some shit, man. You got some experiences. It's quite nice.
Done some stuff. Seen some things.
Broke some hearts.
Drank some nasty stuff.
Broke some hearts. I'm going to emphasize
Made
that.
some nasty cocktails.
Yes. Well, so we, for each of the chats, I always ask and implore the guests to pick a bottle out of the collection for us to sip. And before we, dive into the wonderful portfolio that is Tempus Fugit, because I'm sitting here drinking the Fernet Angelico, you guys are enjoying the A.H. Hirsch. That's the 16-year, right?
Yeah, it doesn't suck.
Doesn't suck. How do you feel about Jen, obviously you're over here as well. How do you guys feel about this
Jennifer
bourbon?
Queries, the only brand ambassador we have in the world for Tempus Fugit Spirits.
Amazing.
Because
and
we
in
love
Austin,
Texas.
we're lucky.
Because we love Texas. We especially love Austin.
It's a perfect place.
But not to slide Houston, San Antonio, or Dallas.
No, we can slide. At least
we're loving
Houston.
Those guys and gals there too. But
they got no problems making money out there.
Yeah,
there's no problem. Huge city.
But this is the only market in the world that we actually have somebody representing our product.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's a true testament to the products and to the market itself.
She's a special person.
To Jennifer, of course.
Yes.
So let's chat about bourbon just in general. Mm-hmm. You have some white whale bottles from what
unicorns.
You told me.
Yeah.
Anything that you're particularly like, this is the one that I've still kept sealed until I find out I'm terminal. I don't have any of those anymore, by the way. I figure.
I do have some old Fitzgerald, very, very old Fitzgerald from the early 50s that I've yet to open. But a kind of a cheap entree into some of the old Fitzgerald is that they did seem to have done a few airline bottles.
Did they really?
Yeah, and so I'm trying to think of what the airline is, but it's definitely one of the defunct airlines. But there was an airline bottle from like 62 or something like that.
Wow.
That it's like, okay, it's a small bottle, it's sealed.
Right.
It's very old Fitzgerald, and I popped it open, and it's like, this is
Take you back
fantastic.
to a different time and place.
It really, I mean, the interesting thing is it was like 8 years old, but it had a complexity that you don't necessarily find. You know, people banter around 8 year, 10, 12, 15, 20, etc. To me, it's kind of arbitrary. You have to honor the spirit at where it's kind of at its optimum. And for some reason, whether it be the mash bill or what have you, it just, an 8 year, very old Fitzgerald was just sublime.
It's got a part of your heart.
Yeah. But you could pick up one of those for like $30. Oh, I don't know what it is now, but I paid like $30. and it's like I get a pour of like one of the unicorns of the spirit world, and you don't feel bad about cracking open the big bottle.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Yeah, that's a smart move. Yeah. Real smart move.
Yeah. So,
go figure. A smart move coming from Troia. So it's wonderful to share the bourbon. It's great to see.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Thank you.
You've got a massive portfolio of elegant stuff, all well designed, all very utilitarian in a sense, like they can work in so many different ways.
Or modifiers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, walk me through some of. Now, I know you love all the children, right?
Yes.
You have to, because nobody can be left out.
Yes.
But what are a couple that really mean more? Not maybe more, but right now in this moment, what are some that mean a lot to you?
Well, I think just from the standpoint that it was part of the inception and the founding of the company, and the thing that we really, kind of put us on the map, if you will, was the Vieux Pontellier. I still think that amongst absinthes out there in the market, it truly is the epitome of the French style vintage absinthe. But aside from that, one that's extremely important to us is the Grand Classico bitter.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And for me, that was the coelacanth of bitter of Turin. I mean, you thought it was extinct, but there it is. It was sitting there in Cognac, which is out in the countryside in the canton of Bern, which is in Switzerland between Zurich and Geneva. And it only seemed to have gotten a distribution probably no further than about 50 kilometers from where it was being produced.
Wow.
But it's been produced essentially in the same way for almost 100 years.
Amazing.
And to me, it represented this artifact of a bitter of Turin that you thought just didn't exist anymore. But it was only because it just was never really exposed to a wider market. And when we realized that the distillery in Switzerland was producing this product, and this was by our association with them and doing the absinthe with the Duplay and the Mansynt, we took some samples back with us, and we started tasting it with some of the guys in New York and San Francisco and other areas. And everyone just went bananas for it. And they were saying, what is this stuff? How quick can I get it? They almost didn't even care how much it cost.
But what year? Is this 07 too? Or
this is like 2008, almost 2009.
So you guys are still, you've actually had the absinthe out there for a while.
Yeah, we're still, kind of focused on the absinthe. And, we essentially became more associated or oriented with this product because we were in one of the absinthe festivals in Beauvarest, which is held in Neuchâtel, Switzerland every year. Talk about an absinthe nerd fest. That place is the nerd fest.
Amazing.
And Peter and I were tapped to be judges in an absinthe tasting competition, which is a horrible experience, especially the next day.
Okay.
It's just like,
I just remember I was choking him a little bit, and then that's all I remember.
It's brutal. I mean, and that evening there's a barn dance held in Beauvarest with locals and all these people from around the world, and there's people dressed in cow costumes, and it's just
turns into a scene from Wicker Man.
It's really surreal. Because this is a real country kind of a town in Switzerland, and they were a little in awe of all these bizarre people from all over the world. But But we ended up at the distillery the next day, where the distiller was giving a tour to people that were in town for this absinthe festival. And Peter and I were up in the tasting room, and the distiller's wife asked us if we wanted some absinthe, and we almost threw up a little in our mouths and said, no, thank you. And she said, would you like some bitters with soda? And we said, yes, please. That would hit the spot. And then we're drinking this stuff and we're talking, and it occurred to us that, hey, what are we drinking here?
Yeah.
I mean, this is really good. And as we kind of explored it a little further, we got to know more about what that product was, and that the distillery was essentially founded in 1920 by buying the recipe and the rights to produce what was known as Martinazzi from the E. Martinazzi Company in Turin, Italy. And they were producing their bitter of Turin well into the 1870s, 1880s. And so when we ultimately brought that to the market, we actually referenced back to E. Martinazzi's original product, which was known as Torino Gran Classico bitter.
Oh, okay.
And since it wasn't made in Turin, we dropped the Turin part and just became Gran Classico bitter. And so I figured Martinazzi wasn't a great name because
it doesn't play so well.
Yeah, the Nazis,
to us in the West.
I mean, it doesn't.
I don't know why. It just doesn't play really
it's
well.
Got a thing.
Yeah, it's
just
strange.
got a thing. But
so it seems like you had yourself a hit on your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And
this,
so
was this the fourth SKU for you guys?
Yeah, it would have been the fourth product. And then in Petaluma, California,
that's where my grandparents were from, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Great,
I'm sure they drank a shit ton of Grand
Great
Classico.
Place to be. Yeah. Or Lagunitas, right?
Oh, yes.
And so we did our research and developed the historic recipes for the creme de cacao, the creme de menthe, and the liqueur de violette.
Oh, wow.
And the creme de cacao in particular proved to be a very, very popular product.
Yeah.
It's an old recipe from the 19th century that specifically uses Venezuelan cocoa beans, Mexican vanilla beans, cane sugar.
Wow.
And most people, and it's humbling to me, but most people recognize is probably one of the best creme de cacaos that exists.
That's amazing.
But,
so it makes me wonder. You have an amazing kind of plethora of products. You have the Bianco.
Bianco vermouth.
The vermouth. You have obviously a sweet or a red vermouth, and then you've got
the Alessio.
And then you've got Gran Classico. You've got absinthe. A massive collection, and a good way to take over the world. But so having all of these things, like, how do you even have an idea of what you would do next, or does it just come to you?
I do have an idea.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is, I look at historic cocktail recipes and all the different products that were used, because the idea that people created a product to be used in a cocktail is really kind of a modern notion.
Yeah.
Typically, these products existed before cocktails, and people drank them as an aperitif or digestif, but they existed before cocktails. And cocktails were essentially created by people grabbing what was already existing around them, using them in combination, and creating, a finished drink that they called a cocktail. Is this combination of different things. So for me, the thing that's interesting is understanding what existed before cocktails, what they tasted like, how people consumed them, and then ultimately how they made their way into cocktails and in what kind of cocktails. So there's still, in my view, a number of different spirits that either there's only a couple of versions around in the world that exist, and maybe not very good versions.
I see.
And in some cases, there's nobody that has been making it for, 40,
Does that
50,
make it very
years.
interesting to you?
It makes it very interesting for me, especially if I think it's something that is relevant to like the cocktail community.
Right.
Like, for example, there's been some interesting sapans or goudrons that are like the pine bud liqueurs that were very popular in the 19th century in the Swiss Alps.
I do have a befuddled face, by the way, for people that can't see. I'm like, pine bud, sure, sure, John.
Bud.
What is that?
It's one of those things that people, that were laboring up in the high altitudes in the Swiss Alps might drink as something to kind of fortify themselves for the day's work or after the day's work. But I bring it over here and I have bartenders taste it, and they say, well, it's really good, but it makes everything taste like Christmas, or if it makes all the cocktails taste like pine sol.
Sure.
So I don't think there's really a practical commercial application for it.
Right.
So it's like, even though I respect and appreciate the historic heritage of this spirit and its popularity historically in a particular region, I don't think it's very relevant to kind of a commercial cocktail aspect.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm not going to invest a lot of energy into.
It's good. I like it, but it's not. How do I use it?
Yeah. So this is where I look at other spirits and go, I think there's some other things where bartenders could use in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
If I can make a really, really good vintage or historic version of it. But I think the thing that's most important is that if I'm going to try to identify the best products that exist on the market, not just here in the US, but also worldwide.
Yeah.
And if I'm wanting to do a product similar to that in category, if I can't make something that is not only a little better, but significantly better, almost a game changer in the category, I'm not going to do it.
What's the point, right? Yeah.
No, buy the products that already exist. If I can't make it better, then just get what's already there.
Yeah.
But if I could make something that represents a significant upgrade, and I think like our creme de noyau is an example of that.
Sure.
I personally felt that there was a product out there that really was a very good product. But when we started doing our test batches of creme de noyau and came across the recipe that we ultimately came forward with commercially, I felt it wasn't just a bit better; it was like game-changing better. And fortunately, the cocktail community has agreed with that assessment. Yeah. And so for me, there's an example of if I couldn't make one better than what was already out there that I already respected, then I'm just not going to do it. But since we were able to find a formulation that represented a significant upgrade, then we are going to bring that out. Yeah, exactly. And
so you've done, you're spreading the love of Tempus Fugit. You are at Juliet on Monday. You're at Austin Shaker, which is a wonderful retailer, kind of small, but has a great selection of stuff.
Yeah, great folks.
People are engaged, right? You've got a good audience here. People asking good questions too.
Oh, I love questions. Yeah, absolutely love questions.
Oh shit! Well, I just fed into the whole thing this whole hour, haven't I?
Well, I mean, whenever I do a presentation, to me, I could sit there and I could talk about my products, but I like talking about the category, like. If I'm going to talk about creme de cacao, I'm not going to say Tempus Fugit creme de cacao this and Tempus Fugit creme de cacao that. I want to talk about creme de cacao historically as a category and what it was like and how it was used, etc. Again, the inference is that we're applying that same attribute or methodology to our product. Yeah. And when you taste it in a cocktail, you'll say, now I get what you were talking about. But I think for me, education is one of the most powerful things that we can bring forward. Yeah. And that's what I really try to do. And I love it when people are taking notes because it tells me that they're engaged and they're paying attention and they're finding information that's valuable that they want to remember. And then also, most importantly, asking questions.
Yeah, which is brilliant. And Austin is very inquisitive too.
Well, I mean, I respect the bartenders and the professionals. And if they're going to give me an hour, a couple hours of their time, when they have a day off, when they can be doing chores and whatever else they need to do, then the least I can give them is something that is useful or beneficial to them or interesting to them. And so I'm always trying to be very conscious of the fact, am I giving them information that's useful?
Sure.
And when they ask questions and I'm able to answer those questions, I feel that that's a useful exchange.
Good use of time.
Yeah, because I respect what they do. Everything we do is to give tools to the bartenders in the bartending community so they can enhance their guest experience and make their job more interesting. Yeah. And if I've done that, that to me is the success. I really don't want to produce a product where I come out to the bartending community and say, this is the next big thing, and have them go, well, that's not my opinion.
Right.
Because I do it for them. And through their education with their guests is where the general public becomes more aware of our products, because their first encounter with our products is probably at one of the best cocktail bars in wherever they live.
Absolutely.
And so for me, if I can give something the bartenders like, then the bartenders are going to share that with their guests, and that's ultimately going to work for us.
The best solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so I've got 2 questions, and one of these, I've never asked this of anybody, but for some reason, John, you seem real well-traveled, you seem very intelligent, you've got a great collection of products. Let's say you were just sipping some bourbon, you're posted up at a hotel bar, something nice, maybe the Savoy, okay?
So,
if someone sat next to you, some figure, like some historical figure, and I swear I've never asked anybody this, but I'm really curious who you'd pick. If there was someone you could just pick their brain and sit down and drink a bourbon with, who would that be?
Oddly enough, I mean, that's an interesting question. And off the cuff, it's like, gosh, of all the people.
I know there's so many.
And
Abraham Lincoln.
I may come up with a different author altogether or a different personality altogether. But Mark Twain, to me, would be interesting. Oh, my God,
that's perfect.
Would be interesting.
That is totally perfect.
Because, I mean, this is a guy that lived a life and was unashamedly honest.
Yes.
And to have a conversation with Mark Twain, to me, would be just
every time, like, because he's so
incredible,
so witty, right? Every time he's like, "Are you fucking with me, Twain?"
God, yeah.
Like, I'm just, are you messing with me right now?
I mean,
because he has to be the whole time.
I mean, you read his books, and it's really kind of these milestones of his life.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely amazing the things he's done in his life.
No kidding.
Where he traveled and where he ended up, and it's just that to me would be fascinating.
That's
Mark Twain.
Man, that's brilliant. I'm writing that down. Well, I have to write it down. It's correct. It's recorded. But
well, you can take that. It's a gift.
I'm not that good. I would pick who would I pick?
But that was off the cuff.
Hemingway, but he'd fight me.
You know what's going to happen is I'm going to think about this, like plane ride home. I'm going to be thinking about this.
Like, damn it, Alec Baldwin. That's what I meant.
Alec Baldwin. I should have said this, but that's who came to mind.
No, but that's brilliant. Yeah. That's completely brilliant. Yeah. All right, so last question, because of course I'm very egocentric and very selfish. I'm actually not that selfish.
That's what everyone says. I mean, that's just, but I'm just
self-deprecating, right? The artists, the creators. Well, so how this is good. This has been a good experience for you. You've been in other podcasts. Great. I haven't had a lot of people that have been in other podcasts.
Yeah.
It's been good.
Well, I'm a little experienced.
I know. You're so tall, too.
You like the cut of my jib?
That's right, mate. Yeah. That's good. I really enjoy it. Dude, it's been a pleasure. And hopefully when we cut, we can maybe sip a couple other things you got in the portfolio, which I'm absolutely looking forward to. John, it's been absolutely a pleasure, dude.
Thank you very much.
Keep in touch. And when you're back in town for Bar Institute, we got to go grab a drink.
We'll do. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, there we have it. John Troia, co-founder of Tempus Fugit Spirits. John says the person he would love to have a drink with at a hotel bar would be Mark Twain. But for many of us, I think John Troia is the person that we would like to have a drink with at that hotel bar. Searching the world for the best absinthe, searching the world for the finest vermouth varieties, John has introduced an exceptional collection of spirits into the U.S., and it's so great that people like Nikki, who we heard from on Monday, will be repping these amazing flavors for John at Tempus Fugit. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. Whether you can't decide to drink another Hemingway daiquiri, or if you're too super excited for Texas Tiki Week 2016, please keep dancing.